Blackhawks stinker in Buffalo. They lose 9-3 to the Sabres. It's the first real blowout loss of the season. This one felt like it was over pretty much from the jump. The Sabres got off to a dominant start. They completely dominated in the first period. Had it 2-0 for a majority of the first period until Tyler Bertuzzi got on the board late in the frame. It was a 2-goal night for Bertuzzi, and the top line actually finished as a +1. Bertuzzi and Bedard both finished as a +1 in this one, whereas the second and third line combined for a -7. So just not a good effort from the Blackhawks tonight. It was a real tough home road back-to-back. They play a tough game in Chicago last night versus the Kraken, and then immediately have to travel all the way to Buffalo for a back-to-back. They didn't get a morning skate in this morning, so I'm sure that played a role in their slow start, but it really felt like even though they started off slow, they couldn't really find their game or find their footing or find their legs or really find anything in this game. Certainly not the back of the net. Well, they did score 3 goals, but the Sabres did it a lot more effectively and put up 9 on Arvid. I asked the question on Twitter at Blackhawks Focus. In a one-game sample, would you rather have that one game, say it's a guaranteed loss heading into the game, there's no way the Blackhawks or any team could win that game, it was going to be a guaranteed loss. Would you rather that be a blowout or a close game? It was kind of like a blowout game like tonight, or a close loss like last night where it was kind of a gut wrencher. Because for me personally, I'd almost rather have, if I'm guaranteed a loss, just a blowout loss. Because I feel like, and it relates to this game, a blowout's just more of roll it up and throw it in the trash. You just kind of burn the game film. Don't look too much into this. This one just kind of felt like a stinker, a bad night for everybody, and I don't think it's one worth reading into. That's why I'm not going to make this video too long, because there's just not that much to take away. Obviously, I'm sure there's some turnover stuff, some maybe system stuff or whatever it may be that's worth cleaning up a little bit. I'm not saying literally burn the game film, but also it's like you don't want to read into just a sloppy effort too much, because for every team this happens at least a few times throughout the season. Now, in recent years, we've seen blowouts happen a lot more frequently, not just a few times a season. So, but with how good the Blackhawks have played to start this season, I'm not gonna overreact to this one like some people are and say this is the start of the team's fall off. They're gonna fall off back, and this is gonna be the standard. I definitely don't think that's gonna happen. This to me definitely just felt like kind of a one bad night. It's the second night of a tough back-to-back, and it was just kind of a bad game. So I'm not gonna. I don't want to look too much into it. The D zone play was definitely a negative. It was very sloppy. Too many breakdowns. Multiple guys getting lost in coverage. Sabres guys just kind of getting lost behind some Blackhawks defensemen or Blackhawks forwards. Some sloppy turnovers in the D zone. Just a lot not going right. Arvid wasn't his sharpest tonight. Certainly not going to blame him for the 9 goals the Sabres put up. I really don't have a problem with Arvid. He's played really well to start this season. This was not his best night, obviously, and with how bad the team played in front of him, I really don't want to read into that too much. I saw people calling for Laurent Brossoit. I would not go that far. I'd say, Arvid has solidified himself in the backup role, and this was just a bad night as it was for the whole team. So not going to read too much into it. It did kind of stink though, because it did feel like at a few times the Blackhawks had made a small push and they got on the board. Connor Bedard was moving really well tonight. Bertuzzi had 2 goals. It felt like the Blackhawks would get on the board and then the Sabres would just respond right back. So the Blackhawks had maybe a little bit of life, and then the Sabres would just take it away. There was an instance, though, in the third period. The Blackhawks scored on the power play early, first minute of the frame. Bertuzzi out in front tipped one in off a Bedard shot, and then Donato in the next shift, or maybe like a minute or two later, he's coming in. He's going for kind of a wraparound play. Ukko-Pekka, but he slides way out of his net trying to get to Donato. He completely blatantly trips Donato behind the net. Ukko-Pekka slid way out of his crease. He's nowhere in the play now, so Donato just has an easy wraparound goal. Ukko-Pekka gets his stick out, completely chops down Donato. There's no call on the play. That's an easy Blackhawks goal, and if Donato converts that, it's a 2-goal game with most of the third period left to play. But instead, that goes uncalled, and then the Sabres go right back down the ice and pot, I think, their 7th goal of the night to put it back at a 4-goal game, and at that point, that was all she wrote. So that was one sequence of events that was kind of disappointing. The Blackhawks We're certainly not on the ref side. Again, there were 2 high stick calls I noticed throughout the game that went uncalled. One that was especially blatant 40 seconds into the game in the first frame. Bertuzzi took one up high, but that was one sequence I did want to talk about because that did kind of feel like that was the chance for the Blackhawks to make a little bit of a push. Not saying they would have came back and won that game, but it still would have been a game, 2-goal game with most of the third. That still would have been a game. So that was an unfortunate sequence there. But yeah, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen did play pretty well, and the Sabres did really well as well. Tage Thompson, always a fun watch, so at least, if someone was going to do it, at least Tage looked pretty good because he's always a fun player to watch. And yeah, the Sabres, though, just kind of gave it to the Blackhawks. It's going to be a big response game Sunday. They have the number 1 team in the NHL coming to town in the Colorado Avalanche. It is going to be the second night of a back-to-back for Colorado, so that is a little bit of an opportunity for the Blackhawks there, but it's still going to be a real tough game. The Avalanche only have 1 regulation loss all season, and they're 20 games into their season, so they've been playing the best hockey in the NHL, and it's going to be a tough task, but it could be a huge win for the Blackhawks to get them right back on track. You have a tough 2-game stretch here, but if you go down or go back to Chicago and beat the number 1 team in the NHL, a division rival, they'll be right back playing some fun, positive hockey. So that's going to be a big game Sunday. We do surprisingly have a decent amount of takeaways. I'm not sure exactly what these are going to be about, but I guess we'll see here. First one says, Soderblom just lacks the consistency and has. Commesso is the long-term guy. Wouldn't mind him coming up this season. Team just wasn't there today either. Yeah, that is one knock on Arvid. When he's on, Arvid is a really quality NHL goaltender, but the problem is the consistency just hasn't been there, and it hasn't been throughout his whole career. So we don't want to, we'll give Arvid a shot. At least I'm still going to give Arvid a shot, and I still do think he's the backup of the present. He does have, I think, a year after this season left on his contract, and I expect him to be the backup goaltender for the duration of his contract. But Commesso is knocking on the door. Soderblom definitely has a shorter leash, and if he may find his way out of Chicago after his contract's up, and Commesso may very well take his spot. Next one here says top line was good at least. Yeah, again, like I said earlier, they finished as a +1 line, which is pretty good. The second and third was just really tough. Obviously, Burakovsky being out, so then you take Bertuzzi off the second line, put him up on the first line, and obviously it's kind of the domino effect where now you have someone playing up. Each person's playing up a line, so now someone jumps up to the second, someone else from the fourth jumps up to the third, kind of like that. So obviously Burakovsky and Dickinson being out, not ideal. Some news I do want to mention though, Frank Saravalli on the pregame show did say Jason Dickinson is expected to return to the Blackhawks lineup on Sunday, so he's going to be a nice piece back in the lineup. Luckily, the Blackhawks didn't lose anyone else, or at least I don't think they lost anyone else in tonight's game. Rest of the team was struggling. Nazar, Moore, Tavo had a tough game, would definitely agree. Soderblom can't be the backup for the future. Yeah, I don't want to overreact. One game, it's a stinker for the whole team. I don't want to overreact on Arvid. He's been very, very good this season, so I'm not going to make any super general claims about him. The refs have sucked the life out of this team. The refs have certainly not helped the team. That last night was a real tough loss, and tonight they were not in favor, but still they just haven't been playing good enough hockey, so it doesn't really matter, but certainly has not helped. Still the bottom 5 team and still years away from making the playoffs. I would disagree with that. I don't think this team's going to finish bottom 5. I think they'll finish better than bottom 5. They may be bottom 10, but they probably will be bottom 10, but I don't think bottom 5. Who knows, though, but especially as years away from making the playoffs. I mean, they're still in a playoff spot as of right now. I believe they're probably falling out after tonight's loss, but they're still right there in playoff contention this year. I think next year they can be a playoff team, so I would disagree with that. 12 goals allowed over the last 24 hours. Yeah, it's been a bad last 4 periods for the Blackhawks. They were great through 2 frames, the first frame in the Seattle game wasn't great, but they had the lead, 2-0 lead through 2 frames in the Seattle game last night, and then now they've been outscored, 12-3 over the last 4 periods. So hopefully stuff you just kind of shake off, throw in the trash, and bounce back, keep playing the good hockey that you have all season. This, I will say, I'm happy we have Jeff Blashill as coach. I trust him and feel a lot more confident in him to get this team right back on track as opposed to some of the previous coaches that have been behind the bench. So we'll see what Blashill can do. This is the first big adversity really since the start of the season, where they went 0-2-1 to start, and they stayed true to their game even after three kind of tough losses, and then they started winning games. They kept playing the good hockey, quality hockey that they had been. So here's a little bit more adversity, and Blashill said this even all consistently throughout the whole season. There's going to be peaks and valleys. That's the term he uses, and this is certainly a valley, but we'll see how the Blackhawks navigate through it. Next one, wasn't going to be able to watch tonight anyways, which is a huge dub for you. Definitely so. I mean, I love watching every single game, even when it's a blowout, but this, if you were going to miss one, this was one to miss. Next one says, they depend on Knight and are not developing the defense. Today was payday. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly true. The Blackhawks have depended a lot on Spencer Knight and Arvid throughout this season. Again, Arvid's been very good up to tonight, but they definitely depend on their goaltenders a lot. But this was a bad game for the defense. I wouldn't say they're not developing the defense. I think everybody continues to get better. It's been a tough stretch for Sam Renzel. He's in a bit of a funk. It's a rookie kind of funk for him. He's having a tough time finding his game, getting back to the game we saw in the 9-game sample last season. But Artem Levchinov continues to be a positive. I didn't think he was too bad tonight, and he's been playing really good hockey as of late. So I would definitely disagree that they aren't developing the defense. That's going to do it for this one. Again, Blackhawks back in action Sunday. And how about the black jerseys they revealed this morning? Those are sick. I'm a huge fan to have a nice alternate jersey, so hopefully we'll see those in action actually next week, so that's going to be exciting. At least there's some positive Blackhawks news from today. But yeah, next game is Sunday, big test versus Colorado. I'll have the post-game thoughts video after that one.